At the weekend, I took part in my first ever official iRacing sanctioned special event, the Sebring 12 Hour. Took part with my usual teammate Dean Powell, and we had a great time. Plenty of action, plenty of developments, plenty of highlights. So I'll run through them with you now so you can see how our race went. It was an awesome time. I can't wait for the next one.
So first it was qualifying, and I took to the track to take care of this because I was taking first stint, and the forecast said that rain was imminent. It could happen any moment, so it was really important to get out on track and do a qualifying lap in the full dry. The first qualifying lap, it was bone dry, no rain to be seen, but halfway through the second lap the rain came and spots fell on the windscreen, not much and only at part of the track, but I was super relieved that my first qualifying lap was a clean one.
Oh guys, it's raining. It's raining.
Came earlier than expected. Keep going.
It's still dry.
In the end we came 5th. Some people did actually improve on their times on that second lap despite the spots of rain, so maybe I should have just kept gunning it until the end to see if I could improve. But in the end 5th is okay, 12-hour race, plenty of time to come up from that or go down from it, as we'll see. So yeah, onto the race. So the race begins, and as you can see, conditions have now devolved into full wet conditions. The rain is absolutely pelting it down. And as the formation lap ends and the race kicks off, you see immediately the cars ahead go 4 wide, not even at the finish line yet, and we're already 4 wide. They sort themselves out, but I can't see a damn thing. And 2 cars come alongside of me, left and right. We're 3 wide into Sunset Bend initially. We sort ourselves out, but this is already a good marker as to how the first stint is going to go. It was horrifying. Couldn't see a thing. I only realised when the race had begun that my wipers weren't working. They were set to auto wipers, so they should have come on by themselves. They weren't, and neither of us knew what the key combination was to turn them on. Shift W, by the way, just for future reference. But that first stint in forward conditions, horrifying, scary, tentative, but so fun and thrilling. Oh my god.
They all kind of.
Good. Oh, somebody's off. Somebody's off. Yeah.
So somebody's misfortune granted us a spot, so we went up from P5 to P4 in the first lap, but that doesn't make you feel good. Seeing someone else go off like that means that the track is just as treacherous and dangerous as it looks. He basically washed out on standing water on the inside of that fast curve, knocked him into the Porsche to the right of him, and he got sort of pinballed off to the left and into the barriers. So it was so easy to make a mistake, and there was nothing standing in the way of you and putting a foot wrong and going sailing off track or pinging off a curb, going off into the grass and losing a place, especially in such early stages when everybody is close together. So not to mention, I only recently released a video on how to drive in the rain, so no pressure on me.
That wasn't fun.
The rain was making things pretty nervous into the hairpin. A few near misses from me and this guy who thought that was a cool idea, so he copied it. After 14 laps of holding back this Porsche from ST Racing, P5, he made the move on the inside, and there was no defending it really. He was always better under braking in that section, and his drive out of this corner was much better. That traction of a Porsche really comes into play when the rain falls, it seems. So P4 down to P5 organically, but I held him back for a long time, so he was probably glad to get around me. It was really slippy out there in the murk.
I let him have it. If he's good, he's good.
As I start the next lap, P6 is now on my tail. These Porsches have really got the pace advantage on me right now. The car kind of feels like it's fallen away from me a bit. He takes it down the inside, makes it stick, seems to have better grip, and he takes the place fair and square. So that Porsche, run by Prima Racing, takes advantage of this prototype, I think, as well. It gets a bit dangerous for me to try and defend it, so I have to let him pass in the interest of self-preservation more than anything else. So now I'm feeling like my pace is dropping off, I'm the cork in the bottle, and I don't want to lose any more positions than I have. So P5 down to P6. Things settle down a bit and I maintain the gap to P7 and secure P6 until lap 21, when I have a little adventure with a long, horrible skating slide over the tarmac in Sunset Bend. I mean, is a Sebring race complete if you haven't had a brush with that wall? I don't think so, but we're now in P7 as a result of that little mini near miss.
Still pouring it down. Oh, good to God.
That's fine.
Sweet Jesus.
And once again, on the very next lap, we have another little mistake here. The car gets grabbed over to the left by the grippy tarmac on the right compared to the slippy curb on the left. The car doesn't like that. It snatches over to the left and puts me on the grass. That Porsche that just passed me, that's 6 laps down. So they've already had an incident and had a long time in the garage for repairs from Get Pole Racing. Remember that name because you're going to see a lot more of them later. I won't spoil anything. But this is what happened live.
Sweet God, mother of God, come on.
So the mistakes are starting to come in thick and fast now. Confidence is getting squeezed and stretched, and I'm starting to think to myself, this is just getting more and more dangerous. I need to get my mind back in, get back in the flow, and just be stable because we're getting closer and closer. We're pushing our luck. The spray is still pretty bad. This is rain. This is rain all over. You're never ever safe when the rain is pouring. But then the rain stops pouring, and now the sun is coming out. The temperatures are rising again. Cars are travelling on track. We all know what's going to happen. At some point it's going to transition to slicks being faster. When's that going to be? And as relative newbies to endurance races with weather involved, we just have to make the call like everyone else does. And with 5 laps left in the tank, and every lap seeming to be faster and faster as I go around, and the track feeling a lot less precarious. We're still on wets, but they're used wets, and the track just feels completely different to how it did when the rain was pouring down. It's decision time. After some deliberating, the decision was made and settled. We were going onto slicks. The executive decision lay with Dean, because the car was being handed over to him. It was going to be on his head.
Make no mistake, it's going to be awful for you on the first few laps.
I know. Prepared for it.
This was a silly decision made by silly people. And as Dean left the pit lane, the car was skating like an ice rink, and I was very sympathetic to him.
Pretty bad out, isn't it?
If it weren't already clear what a mistake we've made, it would be at the very next corner. The car skated across the road on slicks, sent him into the tyre wall, and unfortunately it popped off the tyre, the rear wheel on the right hand side I think. So the car was basically just spinning its diff in the middle, couldn't get any traction on the ground, and eventually we were forced to join the other sorry looking cars taking repairs in the pits.
Oh dear.
Now I know Dean well enough. When I'm quiet, I'm thinking. When he's quiet, he's stressed. So I imagine he's like just fighting to think of what to do here, and so am I. We're not sure where we go from here.
Let's have a look. I'll look around the car, what's going on. Are all the wheels still on? Your wheels are still on, so carry on. Oh man, gutting.
Gonna have to tow.
Yeah, the wheels weren't going round. Oh man, that's
Sorry, man.
how precarious. Don't worry about it at all. There's still loads of time to get it back, and I thought to myself, it's gonna be a miracle if you can keep it on. It'll be right.
That was doing nothing. That.
Yeah, absolutely
That was
nothing.
just not compliant.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so unfortunate.
The race was far from over, but the tempo had now changed. We knew we were going to have to fight back over the remainder of this race. We were now 1.5 hours into a 12-hour race. There was still time to bring it back. So Dean emerges from the pits on lap 30 with wet tyres on this time because we've learnt our lesson. And it's a long way to go. 30 laps in this is, so this is 10% of the total race distance that it'll end up being. And we've still got a couple of cars that are maybe on the same lap, a couple of cars that are 1 lap, 2 laps ahead. Over 12 hours, a lot can change. So now this is Dean's redemption arc. He's actually going to be in this car for a long time. So right now Dean's running wet tyres, but the track is clearly going to dry out at some point and it's going to be viable to make the switch over to slicks. Just not sure when exactly that's going to be. Well, to help that, the car up ahead, the Audi from the Blue Rose team, has just exited the pits on slicks, and although we come flying up to the back of him on our switched on wet tyres, it doesn't take long before the lap plays out and the Audi starts to pull a big gap. That's the signal we need. Slicks must now be quicker because we're not keeping up with that Audi on new slicks. Every lap we're on these tyres, we're going to be losing out to people that make the switch now. So Dean makes a call to come in and change for slicks. The car's still carrying a bit of damage, but it doesn't seem to be hurting lap times too much, so we don't take the optional repairs that are no doubt outstanding. The bumper, at some point that needs to go back on, but every time we take a pit stop, a little bit of that damage gets repaired, so hopefully that starts to snowball, and maybe there's a point at which we can stop for a while and get the car fully repaired. But in any case, 14 laps into his stint, Dean is now on slicks, it's go time. Now we can really settle into the groove and start to make up that lost time. Now, multi-class races can live or die on the quality of the prototype and GT3 classes, the interplay between them. For the most part, the prototypes, the LMP2s and the GTPs in this race were excellent, but on lap 58 we had a very close shave with his Cadillac GTP, nearly took us out. He was really lucky not to put it hard into the wall on that one, very lucky escape, but it just goes to show that as a GT3, danger is never far away. There could be a prototype take you out for no rhyme or reason. So with repairs done and the car running again after the early incident, we were down in 12th out of 15th in our class. But a long road to recovery, and there's a long way to go, and Dean's now in the car for a long time. I said it was a long stint. 100 laps is how far he took the car before he could give it back to me. 3 hours in the car. However, almost as if the weather knew I was going to be back in the car again taking control, hoping for a dry run, dark clouds on the horizon. Rain is on its way. In 30 minutes it's almost guaranteed. And so with rain on the way and us needing to do a stop anyway and a driver swap, and because we've already proven ourselves to be so good at speculative decisions, we decided to come in and change for wets in anticipation of the rain, even though the track is currently dry. Another gamble. At the end of the outlap, it looks like we've made the call correct. The rain starts to fall, drops are on the windscreen and dark clouds are ahead. But that Porsche that's passing me now, he's on slicks, so I'm still on the wrong tyre for the time. The track is still technically dry, and it's going to take a while before that flips over and I get the advantage from the wets. I'm unable to keep up with the Porsche on slicks, I'm slow on these wets, and they're getting hotter and hotter the more I drive on them, and the advantage is being lost. So I want it to rain, and now. It took 4 laps to do it, but the rain started hammering it down. Now we are truly in the second wet phase of a race. Just in time for me to take control of the car. That first stint had already been pretty hair raising, so to do a second one was far from welcome. But on we go. We don't have to pit again for wets, can just get on with it and go through the stint. Now we're on lap 139. The wet is truly set in. Everybody's getting into the groove. I'm about to have a run in with this prototype that's just about to overtake me here. We're going down to the hairpin. He's passing. I think he thinks he's clear of me, but we both cross over. We end up hitting each other. I tag his rear quarter, he goes around and he has to kind of salvage his position from then. I think he comes off with a bit more damage than I do, but after that the car is a little bit wonky. It was already a bit battered already, but it was driving straight. Now it's a tiny bit crooked. Now I couldn't shake the feeling that the car was a little bit bent out of shape now, and the tyres were probably past their best thanks to that early dry running. Maybe that cooked them a bit too much, took too much life out of them, who knows. But the car just didn't feel as good as it did earlier on. So we brought the car in and decided to take those optional repairs. That was a good solid 4 minutes. So this would still cost us 1 to 2 laps on our composition, but we felt that there was still a long way to go. Getting the car fully straight, back to full health, would be worth it in the long run. It was nice to see the front bumper back on the car. It kind of felt like it was back to full health again, but now we knew we needed to keep this car out of the wall, out of the contact, and keep it clean from here on out for us to have any hope of sort of getting back in with a fight and taking some places back. 145 laps in, 12th place. We got to fight back from here. The track was still wet, but there was no more rain forecast at all, completely clear. So we're in a situation again where the track is slowly drying, we're on wets. We don't want to go onto slicks too early, but we don't want to be too late. So my job is to extend these wet tyres as far as they'll go, treat them well. The idea being that the wet tyres wear out, my fuel runs out, and it becomes faster to be on slicks all at the same time. Those 3 things have to converge together in one pit stop. If I can do that, then we save time. We may even avoid that extra additional pit stop wasted. So it's really going to benefit me to just be careful and think about the long game. As the track dries up, your wet tyres will get worked harder and harder and get hotter and hotter, so I found myself looking for channels of water left behind that haven't been run dry yet, just to try and cool those tyres down. I don't have any clue if it actually had any difference, but I had fun doing it. The fact that you even have to think about this stuff and you even feel like it's worth doing is testament to how organic the rain feels in iRacing. It truly is a revolution. I'm not even kidding. Finally, on lap 166, the switchover happened. put slicks on, and whilst it was a pretty greasy exit from the pits, once on track and once in the groove with the grip levels sort of felt out just to make sure the track is genuinely safe and we don't have a repeat of what happened earlier. Once those lap times were coming in, they were immediately 7 seconds per lap faster on the slicks than they were on the wets in that transitionary period. So anybody who was left out there on track still and wet still would have been losing out big time. And now finally I'd gotten some of that dry running that I was hankering for all along. Rain is new and exciting, but it's also treacherous and you can't get into a proper good flow and rhythm. It's quite stressful. So now to have a dry track in front of me, I could get some good satisfying laps in, see where our pace is and see if there's even a possibility of a fight back. We're so far behind, but there's so far to go. Surely there's something we can salvage here. We were currently 10th, but there were a couple of teams that were only a lap or two ahead of us, and anything can happen. And sure enough, we actually found ourselves on the same lap as P9, so they were in our relative list and they were in white, so we were neither a lap down, a lap up, nothing. We were fighting them, they were on the same lap as us, we could get them, we just had to punch them lap times in, catch them up and take them. And all of a sudden they were there, within our sights, we could literally see them on the track. That white Porsche up the road with that black Merc beside it, that's actually in P3 right now, and this gaggle of traffic all coming together to basically open the door for us to swoop past and take it without a fight.
What's going to happen here? Oh my goodness. Thomas Drew, running defence for me.
This was a good stint. It really felt like we were firing on all cylinders, felt like our pace was much better than those around us, and reclaiming that one position back to P9 was just a nice little victory, a reward for the effort we'd put in and sticking with it. And a dry Sebring raceway in the late afternoon sun is always a nice place to drive. So with a tank empty at lap 193, it was time to bring it in and hand the car back over to Dean. And with that, we set our sights on 8th place, but unfortunately 8th was gifted to us at their expense. This is 8th place you're seeing right here, the Porsche on another part of the track. They get passed by this prototype, but then it hits the curb, slams into them, and they both go careening into the Armco tyre wall, and for them it's curtains, I think, for both of them. 8th place basically takes it back to the pits and retires, so as we pass the pit straight, we take the place away from them. A sad way to end it, but a place is a place. We're still in the fight, and unfortunately they're not anymore. It's lap 218 now and near the end of Dean's stint, so stamina runs low, concentration runs low, and he just loses the back end of the car, gets a tap from the GTP behind him just to make sure of it, and ends up being stuck broadside on the back straight. Obviously a GTP has to dodge him there as well, and he has to do a nice calm 3-point turn to get back on track and drive off into the sunset towards Sunset Bend. Hence the name. That's why it's called that, you know, because the sun always sets at the end of a straight right into Sunset Bend. I don't know that for a fact, I'm just kind of putting 2 and 2 together here. Dean pits a few laps after and I take over the reins on lap 222. So now the sun is just peeking over the horizon, it's really low, the whole track looks really lovely and amber. So this is me catching up with one of the cars that's way ahead of us, multiple laps ahead, but I want to claim that lap back, otherwise we're going to get held up. If the pace differential is high, then as a blue flag car you can legitimately get your place back and overtake a faster car that's ahead of you, even though you're a back marker, provided you're not going to hold them up once you pass. So you need to make sure you definitely do have a pace advantage over the cars you pass like this, otherwise you're just going to get in the way, be a nuisance, and nobody likes that. Luckily the closing speed was quite quick, so I was confident that once I was past him I wasn't going to get in the way of him. So while ultimately it doesn't do anything for us position wise, but still P8, it does free me up to just lap as fast as I possibly can, and this is where I feel like my pace and consistency was at its best the whole race. Our fastest lap of the whole race was set during this stint, so everything was on song, really hitting the marks, making great progress against the cars that were still way ahead of us. But every single step forward you make in an endurance race could count towards the end, as we noticed this GTP overshooting the marks at the hairpin, no doubt dazzled by the sun hanging low in the sky, does make it harder to spot those cones in your braking zones. But this is Sebring at its prettiest. I absolutely love Sebring races that happen at sunset and progress as the sun goes down over the horizon. And soon enough, the last of that golden sun goes as it sinks under the horizon and we move into the night phase of the race as I hand the car over to Dean on lap 250. It's not long now. We can see some of the cars ahead. We're still in touch. There's a chance. We just got to keep going and fight. We're still 8th and the cars ahead of us are still a long way off, but we're closing. Steadily, slowly, we're closing. There's a chance we could be in touch with them by the end of this race, and we ain't going to stop until we find out whether that's true or not. If we're right, it's going to be awesome. If we're wrong, then fine, we tried. But at the minute, we're just out on our own. We've got nothing but prototypes for company, and I gotta say at this point, the prototype traffic has been pretty kind to us all throughout this race. We haven't had many incidents. Obviously, we've had 1 or 2 little scrapes that you've already seen, but otherwise, they've been so courteous, predictable. They're the exact kind of prototype drivers that you want around you. So if you were in our race and you were driving a prototype, thank you. You were pretty good to us. On lap 261, we found ourselves promoted to P7 all of a sudden because ST Racing, that you can see stopped in the pits there, they spent an eternity there. I'm not sure why. Maybe they were getting repairs done like we did earlier. Either way, leapfrogged them, P7. Now both Dean and I felt we were pretty strong on pace for the remainder of the race. To prove that, this car ahead of us is not just any of the class cars, it's the class leader. And if you catch and sort of gain a lap back from the class leader, it only just makes you think, would we have been strong contenders at the late phase of a race? Would we have been in with a chance to win our overall class in GT3? There's no way to know that for sure, but what we do know for sure here is that this emboldens us. We can see P6 in the distance and there's enough time to catch them, and our pace is really strong, it seems, so we've got to keep going until the end. Dean comes in on lap 279 and I take control of the wheel again. But notice those pair of headlights in the background, moving away from the pits? That's P6. They're on the same lap as us, we can practically touch them, we can definitely smell them now, and as I wait in the pit box to be released, I feel like a greyhound waiting to bolt out the gate. P6 is right there, they're on the same lap, we can chase them down, hunt them down, and get them before this race ends. There's still time to chase them and take that place. I leave the pits with a mission to do, drive my absolute head off, trying to close that 16-second gap between us and P6 by the end of my stint, to then hand over to Dean for the final stint to the finish. My pace felt strong and the gap tumbled, sometimes by about a second per lap. The progress was great, this was setting up to be an awesome showdown. We're over 10 hours in to a 12-hour race and it's still looking like it's all going to happen at the very end. It's so funny how this happens in endurance races time and time again. Doesn't matter whether it's 6 hours, 12 hours or 24 hours, somebody somewhere is always having that last breath fight to the end. So you should never give up on an enduro. You don't know what the race has in store for you. I locked in and just closed them down lap after lap. The gap was sliced to ribbons. 15 seconds, 13.8, 13.1, 12.2, 10.9, every single lap taking chunks out of them. By now, at this point, their team must have been discussing the possibility that they're going to be caught before the end of this race. And on lap 300, I'm right on the back of them. We are now caught up and are looking to battle for the overtake. It's on. Now, as I've just done a number of laps at full pace as fast as I can, I decided to just sit behind, see where the weaknesses are, probe where the best place to overtake them is, and also give the car a chance to cool off a bit, maybe let the tyres come down a few degrees, and my own body and mind just to settle and set myself up for the overtake. When it happens, I need to be able to strike, so I just sit back and observe for now. There's also a gaggle of prototypes looking to sift through us, so I don't really want our battle to be interrupted by them, so I want to wait until they've all kind of cleared us, and then once the track is to ourselves a bit and the prototypes are out of the way, then we can have a proper one-on-one GT3 straight up battle. I don't want to come all this way and spend all this time catching up to them just to have a prototype open the door for me and slip underneath him while he's dealing with traffic. We've waited a long time and come quite far for this, so I want it to be a straight up sporting fight between us. And once the car had been gathered up a little bit and I felt like I could attack, I was hounding him, breathing down his neck for multiple laps, just trying to see if there was a way through. And the following battle that you will see from the live stream point of view, epic.
It's doing a good job.
Okay, Daniel, there's a car approaching. Looks like about that time was
think it's on.
Oh, oh, oh. 16 to play with.
This will wake his teammates up.
Nicely done.
Oh. Oh, that's class.
11 hours in as well.
That was so fun. What a gentleman.
As well.
Now sat behind us watching the whole thing play out was 4th place team THLF Esports. They were many laps ahead of us and probably not under threat, so they had no reason to get in the middle and sort of mess our battle up. So thank you to you guys very much for just letting this battle play out. But after working hard to get past our rivals, Get Pole Racing, they brought their driver in pretty much straight away. 2 more corners and they were in the pits for presumably a driver swap and refuel. Don't know whether it was scheduled or they brought it forward because they'd now kind of let us go by. 3 laps later, on lap 306, it's time for me to bring it in and finally hand the car over to Dean for the final stint. My work here is done, now it's all over to him. And there's always a risk of Get Pole Racing undercutting us somehow with a better, cleaner pit stop that's quicker in the Porsche. We don't know, we've got no idea. So just to make sure that there's an extra risk of doing that, I overshoot the pit box. And the last thing we need right now is to waste valuable seconds in the pit lane. Dean rejoins the track and we await to see. Have we beat them? Have we been beat? How far behind are they? There's us and there's Get Pole Racing, our rivals. They're right behind us within a couple of seconds. We're now the one holding the tray with all the drinks on it and they're the ones with the big stick poking us in the ribs. We've got to take this all the way to the finish. They're so close and who knows what the pace difference is now between Dean and their new driver. Have they put in their secret weapon till the end just to make sure they get the place back? And it feels like all the time we're getting mobbed with prototype traffic, constantly putting us offline, stopping Dean from getting into his groove and building a gap to the car behind. Everything that worked against Get Pole Racing to bring them to us is now working against us. Now it seems that the fight was not won when we overtook them in the previous stint, that was just the opening salvo. Now Dean's got to get to the end with a car breathing down his neck, make no mistakes and try to build the gap to resoundly beat them and make it known that they're not going to catch us. No pressure. By 10 laps into Dean's stint, he's actually built a pretty good gap. We actually break physical line of sight with the team behind us at some points of the track. This looks really promising. If Dean can just keep putting in consistent laps like this, make no mistakes, and we don't get any funny prototype traffic, then we could just be in the clear. This was of course extremely invigorating and exciting to watch. Well, it was late. It was like 1 in the morning. Leave me alone. The gap seemed to be stable, there was maybe a tenth or two passed back and forth between us, but for the most part no progress was being made by either party. We couldn't shake them and they couldn't catch up to us. That is until lap 328, when this peculiar behaviour from a prototype kind of made us check up a little bit, weren't sure where he was going to go, what he was going to do, and that brought our opponent right on our tail. Now there would be an attack any moment, any corner, not sure when. But with basically 4 minutes left of a 12-hour race, if they get within striking distance, so 4 tenths, 3 tenths, 2 tenths, surely they're going to go for it. The closest they get is this moment. They get really close to us, but it's still not quite enough to make a defined move. And Dean defends his line when he needs to, and sticks to the racing line when he doesn't. And he keeps them at bay. It's not enough. We begin our final lap and the fireworks start for the overall winner, but we've still got our final lap to get through as well. Dean's lap times have been consistently in the 201s for the past 15 laps. He's making no mistakes and giving the team behind us no ins. As he drives the car down the back straight towards Sunset Bend for the final time, the gap is big enough for us to feel safe. It feels in the bag. He just has to bring it home around this final corner and cross the finish line to seal the end of our 12-hour race. This was an adventure. We enjoyed it a lot, and we're so glad also that Get Pole, the guys we were fighting with at the end, we're glad that they stuck around and raced to the line. They gave us something to fight for and sprinkled a bit of drama on the final phase of our race. If they weren't there, that would have never happened, and hopefully they feel the same way about us too. We were out of contention for the win quite early on, but the reality is that endurance races truly are all about the journey. Multiple teams of multiple people pushing their cars over a great distance just to say they made it to the end. Races like these are powered by the huge number of drivers turning up to chip in, contributing to one another's experiences. Without them it simply wouldn't work. The race took us through rain, shine, day and night, and left us with one of the most memorable sim racing experiences to date.
Well, there you go. A roundup of our first ever official iRacing special event, and what an event it was. We enjoyed this special event so much. It was so exciting. It seemed to pass in the blink of an eye. 12 hours goes quickly when you're having such a good time. And with rain now, it's just so much more interesting and so many more dimensions and facets. So if you ain't done one of these events before, or you ain't done one in a while, get back out there. You'll have a great time with your team. But until then, thanks so much for watching. I hope you loved this video highlight recap of a race. I had a good time producing it. We had a great time racing in it. So we'll be back for more and hopefully see you out on track with a future special event. Cheers again.